The echo of her heels against the marble floor felt louder than the words she had just spoken, as if the entire 32nd floor of the glass tower in downtown Chicago was judging her. Olivia stood rigid behind her sleek desk, her jaw tight, her fingers still trembling from where she had pointed at the door. Marcus stood across from her in his navy maintenance overalls, holding a paper cup of coffee that had long gone cold, absorbing the blow in silence. "You're terminated, effective immediately," she had said, her voice sharp enough to cut steel. And just like that, a single father's paycheck vanished. Have you ever watched someone's world collapse in real time? Have you ever been the one who caused it? If you were in Olivia's place, drowning in pressure, investors circling like sharks, what choice would you have made? And if you were Marcus, standing there with rent due and a 6-year-old waiting at home, how would you have held yourself together? Olivia had built Sterling Dynamics from the ground up. At 38, she was one of the youngest tech CEOs in the Midwest, praised by Forbes and envied by competitors. But success had a way of hardening her. The night before, a multimillion-dollar contract had collapsed after a catastrophic system failure. The board blamed negligence. Investors threatened to pull funding. In the chaos, someone mentioned Marcus, the building's facilities technician who had flagged electrical irregularities in the server room weeks ago. The warnings had been lost in layers of management. Olivia needed someone to blame, someone visible, someone expendable. Marcus became that someone. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply nodded, as if he had expected life to be unfair again. He had been through worse. 2 years earlier, his wife, Hannah, had died from a sudden aneurysm, leaving him alone with their daughter, Sophie. He had taken the maintenance job at Sterling because it offered health insurance and steady hours. Every morning, he braided Sophie's messy brown hair before school, whispering promises that he would always show up for her. Now, walking out of that glass tower with a cardboard box under his arm, he wondered how he would keep that promise. Olivia tried to bury the discomfort under meetings and spreadsheets. She told herself she had acted decisively, like a leader should. But less than 20 minutes later, her chief technology officer burst into her office, pale and shaking. The system failure wasn't random. A hidden malware attack had breached their servers, locking them out completely. Client data was frozen. Backup systems were corrupted. If they didn't restore operations within hours, Sterling Dynamics would face lawsuits that could crush the company entirely. The room felt smaller. The skyline outside the windows blurred as panic tightened around her chest. "Fix it," she demanded, but her tech team scrambled helplessly. The malware was sophisticated, custom-built, and tied into the building's electrical infrastructure. It had exploited a vulnerability in the server power grid, exactly the irregularity Marcus had warned about. There was a silence no one wanted to break. Finally, someone said what Olivia already knew. Marcus had once worked in cybersecurity before switching careers to care for Sophie after Hannah's death. His resume had mentioned it casually, almost apologetically. He had helped design power grid fail-safes for a defense contractor in Virginia years ago. He was the only one who truly understood how the building's physical systems and digital networks intertwined. And she had just fired him. Pride can be expensive. Sometimes it costs more than money. Olivia stood frozen, then grabbed her coat and ran for the elevator. The descent felt endless. By the time she reached the lobby, Marcus was just stepping out onto Wacker Drive, shoulders hunched against the cold wind off Lake Michigan. She called his name, but her voice cracked, swallowed by traffic. He turned slowly. For a moment, neither spoke. The city roared around them, indifferent. Olivia felt something unfamiliar: shame. Not the corporate kind, not the fear of bad press, but a deep, human ache. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the quiet dignity. She thought of the child waiting at home, unaware that her father's job had disappeared in a matter of minutes. What if that were your parent? What if that were you? She explained the crisis in rushed fragments. The malware. The failing servers. The potential collapse. Her words tumbled over each other, stripped of arrogance. She didn't offer excuses. She simply said she needed his help. Marcus listened without expression. The wind tugged at the papers in his box. For a heartbeat, he imagined walking away. He imagined going home, holding Sophie close, finding another job somewhere smaller, somewhere kinder. He owed Olivia nothing. She had humiliated him in front of staff, reduced him to a scapegoat. But he also knew what it meant to lose everything in an instant. He thought of the hundreds of employees upstairs, receptionists, interns, young engineers paying off student loans. He thought of their families. If Sterling collapsed, it wouldn't just hurt Olivia. It would ripple through dozens of lives. Sometimes strength is choosing mercy when revenge feels justified. Marcus followed her back inside. The next hours unfolded like a storm. In the dim glow of the server room, Marcus moved with calm precision, tracing cables, isolating infected nodes, bypassing compromised circuits. Sweat soaked through his shirt as he rebuilt pathways manually, guiding the tech team with quiet authority. Olivia watched from the doorway, realizing how easily she had underestimated him. At one point, the power flickered, and the entire floor held its breath. Marcus stayed steady, fingers flying across a borrowed laptop as he deployed a clean restoration protocol he had once designed years ago. Slowly, screens across the building began to light up again. Systems reconnected. Data restored. The malware was contained. When the final green status indicator appeared, a wave of relief swept through the room. Some employees cried openly. Others applauded. Olivia felt her knees weaken. Sterling Dynamics was saved. But something else had shifted too. Later that evening, long after the crisis passed, Olivia found Marcus alone in the break room, staring at a photo of Sophie on his phone. The exhaustion on his face was deeper now, but there was also quiet satisfaction. Olivia offered him his job back, no, more than that. She offered him the position of Director of Infrastructure Security, a salary that reflected his true value, flexible hours for Sophie, full respect. Her voice trembled as she admitted she had been wrong, that fear had blinded her. She didn't dress it up in corporate language. She apologized as one human to another. Marcus studied her carefully. Trust isn't rebuilt with titles or paychecks. It's rebuilt with humility. He accepted, not because he needed the money, though he did, but because he believed in second chances. He believed people could learn. In the months that followed, Sterling grew stronger than ever. Marcus implemented safeguards that made the company nearly unbreakable. Olivia changed too. She began listening more, blaming less. She visited the lower floors, learned names, asked about families. She even attended Sophie's school science fair one Saturday, standing awkwardly among parents as the little girl proudly explained her volcano project. One reckless decision had nearly destroyed everything. One act of forgiveness had saved more than a company. If you were standing where Olivia once stood, pressured and afraid, would you have had the courage to admit you were wrong? And if you were in Marcus's shoes, wounded but powerful, would you have chosen compassion? Before this story ends, tell me in the comments what you would have done in their place. Because sometimes the people we overlook carry the very strength we desperately need. Sometimes the second chance you give someone becomes the second chance you receive. And if this story truly touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of humility and forgiveness, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people can remember that even in our worst moments, we can still choose grace.